debate the president. Next, the suit suggests that Acosta didn't put his hand on the White House intern. Well, as you can see right there on your screen, well, the intern tried to get the mic back. There was contact. I'm not saying anything bad happened with that, but the complaint also claims Acosta has been a journalist. This is my favorite. For more than 2 decades and is widely respected for his diligence and independence. That's the biggest lie. Jim Acosta is a lot of things. He is not a fair, balanced, independent journalist. Now, he is a far left, grandstanding, sycophant, left-winger, capitalizing on his blatant anti-Trump bias. And his conduct inside the White House has been, frankly, a lot of times anything but professional. Take a look.
I'm not sure this press conference was ever on the rails. As you heard numerous times during this news conference, the president was just not in touch with reality. The people here who work at this White House all the way up to the president evidently believe that journalists are the enemy of the people, literally the enemy of the people. I'll say that the press is not the enemy of the people. And, I think, maybe we should make some bumper stickers, make some buttons.
Andrew.
The law could be different than border security, Sarah. Border security could mean drones, it could mean agents, it could mean more fencing. It doesn't necessarily mean a physical.
And that's part of the negotiation that we expect Congress to have.
But you understand Democrats are saying that they may not be in favor of this kind of deal. They say thanks, but no thanks for a wall.
Jim, I'm not negotiating with you. I'm going to let Congress take care of that.
What we're witnessing right now is just this erosion of our freedoms in terms of covering the President of the United States. I think that there are moments when this president is just really sensitive to criticism, and he lashes out. Last 3 news conferences, Wolf, all of the questions to the American news media have been handled by conservative press. And I think, Wolf, there's no other way to describe it, but the fix is in. The Statue of Liberty has always been
let me ask you a question.
Of hope to the world for people to
Jim, do you believe
people to this country, and they're not always going to speak English, Stephen.
Jim,
they're not
do you
always
believe
going to be highly skilled. They're not always going to be.
Jim, I appreciate your speech.
I think we saw the president's true colors today, and I'm not sure they were red, white, and blue.
Not sure if they're red, white, and blue. True colors? That would be opinion. I thought he was supposed to be a journalist. Now, Jim Acosta's coverage of President Obama was actually a little different. Take, for example, this glowing coverage of Obama at his 2012 inauguration. Let's take a look.
Obviously, this is the moment that everybody is waiting for on Inauguration Day, when the President and the First Lady step out of their limo and walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I feel like I should pinch myself right now, Wolf. I can't believe I have this vantage point of history in the making.
So you're literally, what, about 15, 20 feet away from the president?
I'm probably a good, I would say, 50 feet away from the president right now, Wolf, but very, very close.
Wow, it sounds like he had a thrill up his leg, like Chris Matthews. Anyway, Acosta's overwhelming bias, it's not shocking. In fact, he's pretty much towing the company line at fake news CNN. For 8 long years, they just worshipped Barack Obama. They loved the Clintons. Remember Clinton News Network? Now, CNN claims to be facts first, but in reality, they put their hatred for Donald Trump before anything else. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day, pretty much. Take a look.
Is this president trying to impersonate Hugo Chavez, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Vladimir Putin?
What a great case officer Vladimir Putin is. He knows how to handle an asset, and that's what he's doing with the president.
When do we see almost a shadow government come out and say, we cannot side with the government?
Why is President Trump showing sympathy for white nationalists and other hate groups?
What does that tell you in an America that in one generation called you? What does that tell you, Don?
We can surely say his words have absolutely emboldened white supremacists.
He has given oxygen to racists. He is clearly trying to ignite a civil war in this country.
There's a sign out there that's been hung up in the White House or outside the White House saying, if you're not white, you're not especially welcome.
The president gets 2 scoops. Everyone else around the table gets 1, and no word if there were sprinkles.
If you think you've had an earful of Donald Trump, check out what's in the ear of a beagle in Britain named Chief. Brace yourself.
If he took a dump on his desk, you would defend it.
16 tweets today to start the new year, some of them deeply disturbing. These are the messages from a person who is not well, from a leader who is not fit for office.
He's President Snowflake. Okay? everything he said. Oh, they're mean to me and they don't like me and I just don't understand it and it's not fair. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part.
That's a lot of opinion by people that claim that they're journalists, left-wing opinion. Now, is anyone really surprised that the network that you just saw had their chief White House correspondent kicked out for unprofessional conduct? Now, the White House is classifying the Acosta suit as, quote, more grandstanding from CNN. Now, a law and crime website, it's a great website, op-ed, trashed the complaint, and renowned journalist Bob Woodward rebuked the lawsuit and called out the media becoming emotionally unhinged over Trump. The great one, Mark Levin, he just ripped and slammed the suit over the so-called constitutional issue, which is a farce. Take a listen.
You understand that there's nothing in the Constitution that compels the president to hold a presidential press conference, period. What's the court going to order him to hold one? There's nothing in the Constitution that compels the president to call on anyone from CNN, let alone Jim Acosta. Period. And Acosta does not have a constitutional right to disrupt the press conference, and CNN doesn't either.
And as per usual, CNN is all bark, no facts. We'll keep you updated on this ridiculous lawsuit. Now, you might have noticed that fake news CNN, conspiracy TV, MSNBC, other far-left outlets, well, they now seem to be avoiding any post-midterm election coverage. It's not an accident. Democrats had a historically very poor performance in last Tuesday's election. That's why they don't want to talk about it. Now, Republicans, yes, they lost the House, but they made gains in the Senate, something that has only happened 3 times in 100 years of midterm elections. 1994, let's look at the tape. Bill Clinton's first midterm election, they got shellacked. They lost 52 House seats and 8 Senate seats. It was even worse under Obama. He set a record. 2010, his first midterm, Democrats lost a whopping 63 House seats and 6 Senate seats. Now the Democrats are in disarray. Serious battle brewing tonight on Capitol Hill between far-left Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and even further left-wing Democrats like the socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, the 29-year-old incoming congresswoman from New York actually joined a climate change protest. Get this, outside of Pelosi's office. Take a look.
Is that this is not about a person, this is not about a personality, but it's to show whoever is speaker. And ideally, and what we see is that should Leader Pelosi become the next Speaker of the House, we need to tell her that we've got her back in showing and pursuing the most progressive energy agenda that this country has ever seen. That's right.
No moderates exist in today's modern Democratic Party. Now, this is the same incoming congresswoman who recently filmed her presidential aspirations on Instagram Live while making macaroni and cheese. The same incoming congresswoman who campaigned on a message of massive tax increases and a government nanny state. And meanwhile, other incoming members of Congress have they've come out against Nancy Pelosi, taking the gavel as Speaker of the House. Still, Pelosi, she's probably likely to become the next speaker. Many powerful Democrats are lining up behind her, including longtime Congressman Elijah Cummings. And now Pelosi and her allies, they're pulling out one of the Democrats' favorite political tactics in order to assure her speakership. It was in Politico today. But watch this, the gender card.
It's very important. You cannot have the 4 leaders of Congress, the President of the United States, these 5 people, and not have the voice of women, especially since women were the majority of the voters, the workers in campaigns, and now part of this glorious victory. When I came to Congress, there were 12 Democratic women. I said, we have to change this. Now we'll have close to 90.
Now, whether or not Nancy Pelosi becomes the speaker, let me be very clear, warn you once again, the Democratic agenda does not include making the lives of the American people better. Instead, what we now know, what they hid during the election, is their plan to use their power in the House for revenge. And by the way, they will do anything and everything in their power to bog down the administration with absurd investigations. And while House Democrats are plotting just revenge, they don't have any answer to President Trump in 2020, according to one former Clinton advisor. Hillary Clinton, get this, apparently seriously thinking about running again. We're going to have more on that. Jesse and Jessica will join us. But, you know, it's interesting to just watch all of this unfold in action here because, you know what? It's a good thing that the president campaigned hard and broke the trend that neither Obama or Clinton could. 3 new Senate seats. Republicans keep control in the Senate. And now we have more Clinton news out there as well, and their old baggage. 20 years after Monica Lewinsky became a household name, after then President Bill Clinton engaged in sexual misconduct with the White House intern, Lewinsky speaking out about the Clinton affair and the horrible damage that it did do to her life in a new documentary series for A&E, in an opinion piece in Vanity Fair about why she participated in the documentary. Well, Lewinsky says that if she saw Hillary Clinton, she'd find the strength. She said, if I were to see Hillary Clinton in person, I know I would summon up whatever force I needed to again acknowledge to her sincerely how very sorry I am. By the way, good for her. By the way, I think that's extraordinarily brave, gracious, and frankly honorable. Here's a clip from the documentary.
I felt terrible. I was scared and I was mortified and afraid of what this was going to do to my family. And, you know, I still was in love with Bill at the time. So I felt really responsible.
In the op-ed, Lewinsky also says she was disappointed that Bill Clinton said he didn't owe her an apology when he spoke with NBC News back in June. Take a look.
But you didn't apologize to her, at least according to folks that we've talked to. There was never an apology made.
I have not talked to her.
Do you feel like you owe her an apology?
No.
A lot of other people to apologize to. Apparently he's not up to the challenge. There's one standard of conduct for the Clintons, another for everyone else. Now, for years, the biggest Clinton apologists, though they were members of Hollywood, today they're continuing to ramp up their vile, daily hatred campaign against President Trump and his supporters. Last night, deranged anti-Trump actor Robert De Niro, well, he continued to spew violent rhetoric while speaking at a Friars Club event in New York City using profanities and to urge the overthrow of the government. Now, of course, this type of sick behavior is nothing new. Advocating violence, using vulgar language, it's all part of a pattern from Hollywood, from the Hollywood left. I think an awful lot about blowing up the White House. They've been melting down since the day Donald Trump was elected before our very eyes. Common sense Americans know better than to buy into the hate that they're spreading, because that's exactly what it is. All right, we'll have a lot more on all of this throughout the hour. But first, joining us, we go back to our top story, and that is the shenanigans. What's going on in Florida? Joining us now, the Florida Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Pam, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Let's talk a little bit now. There is an investigation. What can you tell us about it?
Well, I, of course, will not go into any details about the criminal investigation, but I felt very strongly in my independent authority as chief legal officer and law enforcement officer for the state of Florida that we had to get the Florida Department of Law Enforcement involved in this, do interviews. There have been so many allegations, and right now that's all that there are. They're allegations. But I've had my prosecutors on the ground in Lauderdale. We have the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement has also opened a tip hotline for folks to call. You can go on their website and get it. I can give it out. But if folks feel that they have seen evidence of fraud, call that in. We are clearly doing an investigation. We have made no conclusions, but this is about the integrity of our election process. And wherever it leads, we want to be sure that voters know that our process is going to be fair and legal, Sean.
We had a judge Friday say the Florida Constitution was violated. Look, the canvassing board, this is Florida law, shall report all early voting and all tabulated vote by mail results to the Department of State within 30 minutes after the polls closed. That didn't happen. Right. The canvassing board shall report, with the exception of provisional ballot results, and update the office every 45 minutes. We're supposed to have observers that are being in there. That didn't happen as well. 65 of the 67 Florida counties, including the Panhandle, 37 of those counties, or 35 of them, they were ravaged after the hurricane. They all got the job done.
That's right.
How is it that this keeps happening in Broward County?
Well, and that's what we're looking into, and that's what I can't go into in detail. But what you said was clearly laid out in the letter that I sent to Florida Department of Law Enforcement saying why we need to open a criminal investigation, and that has now been done. There is an active criminal investigation. At the same time, Sean, you know there are countless, at least 7 civil lawsuits filed by the DNC, by the ACLU, I believe, by the League of Women Voters, all these civil lawsuits, and they're basically trying to, as you know, throw out deadlines. So it would be the wild, wild west. I mean, without deadlines, how do you manage elections? And they also don't want to require signatures for provisional and vote by mail ballots. And
well,
let me make this very clear.
We know
Florida
that Snipes,
law.
Yeah, go ahead.
Florida law expressly and unambiguously states that you must have signature verification. So what they want to do, they want to change the law after the ballots have all been cast and go back retroactively and change our law, which is it's ridiculous. And Bill Nelson just needs to take a deep breath and concede gracefully and walk away from this.
Let me run down the list, if I may. We know that Snipes just, in the course of this election, mixed in rejected provisional ballots with several hundred valid votes. Well, that means it's corrupted. In August, the judge ruled that Snipes actually mishandled mail-in absentee ballots. In 2017, a judge ruled that she illegally destroyed ballots. Some Broward County officials in 2016 poll results were reported before the polls closed. It goes back to 2012. It's every year, Pam.
And Sean, that's why I directed the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to open an investigation, not wait until this is over. They have opened an investigation at my direction, and that is ongoing and active criminally.
Right.
We have intervened in all the civil lawsuits that deal with the Constitution, and I feel we are on firm constitutional ground as well.
All right, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of Florida, thank you for updating us. We'll follow this criminal investigation closely. When we come back, Senator Marco Rubio, he was the first person to realize what was going on. We'll talk about that later. Reports tonight that Trump's legal team is finalizing their written answers to Mueller's questions. So will this so-called witch hunt finally be coming to an end? Catherine Herridge, Greg Jarrett, Monica Crowley, so much more. Straight ahead. All right, so as the Florida recount is underway, Broward County has come into focus for its history of incompetence and controversy, especially under the leadership of election supervisor. There she is, Brenda Snipes. According to former DOJ official J. Christian Adams, Snipes' misdeeds include prematurely destroying ballots after the 2016 primary race, reporting more registered voters than citizens, doctoring reports about cleaning voter rolls, and losing the manual on removing dead voters. Florida Senator Marco Rubio has been very vocal with his concerns about the election and all these irregularities. He joins us right now. Senator, honestly, you were the first that really brought this to my attention. Thank you. 57,000 vote lead, now dwindled down to 12,000. Now they're going to have even more time. I'm concerned. You actually said, you used the word steal. Do you believe there's been an effort here, corruption here, to steal an election?
Well, here's what I believe. I believe the law hasn't been followed from the beginning. You know, those early votes, the last time they were cast was the Sunday before the election. By law, those are supposed to be downloaded and sent to the state by 7:30 p.m. on the night of the election. And then you have to process the absentee ballots, the mail ballots that had come in before that time. And then there's always some that come in Monday and Tuesday before the election. Those should be shortly thereafter. They didn't follow any of that. There's always additional votes added to every county because people are voting from overseas or because you have haven't fully processed all the ones that you had by 7:30, but you're supposed to update that every 45 minutes. They didn't do that. We know, for example, that as part of Broward County's vote count, it includes at least 19 people who were disqualified from voting by their own canvassing board, who they only took the ballots to after being forced, after being caught, and we don't know how many others that may have happened in. And now we know they didn't start the recount, the machine recount, until this morning, after everybody else started Saturday or Sunday. Miami-Dade is almost done. So it's irregularity after irregularity. And as far as stealing is concerned, let me just make this one point on that. That's what the election lawyers are not coming to Florida to make sure every vote is counted. The reason why election lawyers get involved is to make sure as many votes as possible for their client is counted and as many votes as possible for their opponent is disqualified. And when you have an election office this incompetent and this law breaking, it creates enormous opportunity for those sorts of arguments to be made. And suddenly the election's decided by a judge or by lawyers, not by voters the way they're supposed to be.
Well, we know, for example, that Snipes she mixed in rejected provisional ballots with a number of valid votes. So what that ultimately means, Senator, is that the entire count is irreversibly corrupted. And, we have all of these violations, 2012, 2014, 2016, 2017. Now it's happening again. I for the life of me, especially after all we went through, dimpled, pimpled, scattered, smothered, covered, and everything else in 2000, this keeps happening. There are 67 counties, 65 of them got it right. And more importantly, 35 of those counties had been victimized by the hurricane, especially the Panhandle. They got it right.